At 62, Merle Haggard's son finally confesses what we all suspected. He doesn't deliver it like a courtroom reveal or a headline-grabbing bombshell. He says it the way families tell truths they've always known, steady, careful, and plain. The admission is simple and human. Merle Haggard carried a quiet, lifelong tenderness for Dolly Parton. Not a secret affair, not a tabloid detour, but a soft glow he refused to let burn anything down. He honored it the only way a songwriter can without doing harm. He turned it into music and left it there. That's the confession, and once you hear it framed that way, the puzzle pieces slide into place. Picture the mid-70s. Two tour buses roll past dark cornfields, headlights carving silver lines across the highway. One belongs to the sharpest pen in Bakersfield's Long Shadow. The other carries a Tennessee powerhouse who was already becoming a one-name legend. Between shows, they drift toward each other like magnets. He carries stories that smell like diesel in dance halls. She arrives with a laugh like sleigh bells and a work plan so exact you could set clocks to it. On long rides, they sit in the aisle, a pillow on the floor, a deck of cards flicking between fingers, talking about melodies and deadlines and the kind of dreams that won't take no for an answer. The air is bright, the chemistry is obvious, and yet the line is clear because two adults made it clear. He tries to outrun it on stage, he tries to bury it under miles. But feelings like that don't behave. They sneak into quiet moments. The walk back from sound check, a glance from the wings, the hush right after the encore. The easy thing would have been the messy thing. He chooses the hard thing. He keeps his promises, respects hers, and carries the ache into a notebook. Somewhere in Reno, the feeling hardens into lines. Those lines turn into a melody, and the melody becomes the sound of a man holding himself together with twine and prayer. You know the tune. Maybe you remember the first time the radio let the steel guitar bloom and a voice said out loud, "What so many swallow, wanting without taking, loving without crossing." It wasn't confetti, it was clarity. A grown man admitting he felt something he would not act on. In a business that often rewards chaos, restraint became the plot twist, and that's why the story endures. People imagined a smoky back room where somebody finally spilled the beans. That's not how it happened. The evidence sat in plain sight. He carried one of her songs straight to the top as if tipping a hat in daylight. She answered with respect of her own. They toured together night after night and made kindness feel electric. Watch old footage and you can see it. The grin she hides when a harmony locks, the way he lingers in the wings like a proud conspirator. It looked effortless because they worked at it. It looked simple because they kept it clean. Then came a late-night call. No roses, no grand gesture. Just a phone at an hour when truth doesn't bother to dress up. He played her the song, notes trembling across a line that could carry anything except a broken promise. On the other end, she listened with the kind of warmth that sets boundaries, not fires. No scene, no scandal. A door stayed closed, and a masterpiece was born. The charts would lift it high later, but the real victory was private, a feeling put somewhere safe where it could not harm, only haunt. Of course, people talked. They always do. Whispers called it the worst-kept secret in country music. But the magic wasn't in the rumor. It was in the refusal to feed it. He drew a line and kept drawing it. She matched the line with grace. That's why their friendship lasted. That's why the compliments, years later, still sounded like sunlight. So what exactly is Noel saying at 62? He isn't peddling a messy revelation. He's confirming a gentle one. If you want to know who his father was, listen to the records and believe them. The bus stories were real, the admiration was real, and the guardrails were real. A son inherits more than a catalog. He inherits context. He has heard the road crew talk, watched bandmates soften when her name comes up, and lived long enough to see how a boundary can protect the best parts of a person. Here's the twist. The feeling didn't just fill his songs, it sharpened them. He took one of her stories and drove it to number one. She let the confessional ache live in the open without letting it trespass. Two pros, two adults, one quiet agreement, keep it kind and let the work do the talking. Years later, when they shared a stage again, the current was still there but tempered by time. What survived was admiration, not wreckage. The art had done its job. If you've ever carried a flame you never fed, you recognize the feeling. It doesn't disappear, it matures. It settles into the bones and becomes a compass that points you away from selfishness. That's the part gossip never prints. We chase slip-ups. We ignore discipline. He walked past a door he could have opened and chose not to, again and again, then punished himself in the only way that wouldn't hurt anybody. He wrote about it until the ache turned useful. The romance belonged to the audience, but the discipline belonged to them. He was 9 years older and at a peak. She was building a brand so bright you needed shades to look at it. If either had chosen the loud road, a dozen lives would have cracked. Instead, they turned pressure into harmony and became better at what they already did best. You can hear it. The confidence in her pen, the way his delivery softened without losing steel. Noel knows something most folks forget. A love story doesn't need a kiss to count. Sometimes the most dangerous move is the silence, the confession you never make because it isn't yours to make. His father was human. Nobody is polishing a halo here, but on this one, with her, he stayed in his lane, and that choice gave him one of his finest ballads while giving the rest of us a map for power without carelessness. There's a reason the record still works. It isn't only the melody, though the melody moves like a night train across open country. It's the ethic. Even listeners who know nothing about the backstory hear the weight in the restraint. In an age that loves a screenshot more than a standard, the track sounds almost old-fashioned. Or maybe the track is timeless, because choosing not to hurt people never goes out of style. Don't underestimate the woman at the center. She didn't play coy about the important things. She told the world she loved the man waiting back home and then lived that promise, one city at a time. She kept her circle tight, ran her schedule like a business, and guarded her legend with both velvet and steel. When a friend arrived with a song shaped like a heart on a string, she listened, thanked him, and handed it back without letting a single boundary slip. And she never punished him for feeling. She invited him back into the spotlight years later, proving the kindness was real. When he passed, she spoke about him with family warmth. He returned the favor on the page and in interviews, praising the human beneath the glitter, the planner behind the sparkle. If you need proof that adults can steer through dangerous water, that's it. Two titans choosing dignity over spectacle and winning the long game. The proof hides in the swap. He took Kentucky Gambler and carried it to the summit. She kept writing and singing with a confidence his respect helped fortify. Back and forth they went, a friendly ping-pong match fueled by admiration rather than drama. Every top mark they posted beside each other was another note that said, "We're good, the music wins." Noel grew up inside that weather system. He knows how a harmless crush can sound dangerous when strangers narrate it, and how something dangerous can turn beautiful when a disciplined artist tells it himself. Ask him for the story and he'll point you to a sleeve, a set list, a memory of his dad stepping off stage quieter than usual after the big ballad. He'll say the room seemed to hold its breath. He'll say the band gave him a little extra space. He'll say the audience didn't clap right away because the hush needed another second to land. That's the secret worth keeping. A love that never demanded interest but still paid dividends. It pushed him to write cleaner, sing truer, and look inward instead of outward. It pushed her to double down on who she already was, not who anyone wanted her to be. The audience got the best of both worlds, a confessional classic and a friendship that endured. We didn't lose anything. We gained a compass in a 3-minute song. There are two ways to tell this story. One is the tabloid way. Broken vows, slammed doors, gossip dressed as gospel. The other is the grown folks way, the line nobody crossed. One gives you a surge you forget by morning, the other gives you a standard you can live by. His son knows which matters. That's why, when he finally stops hedging and just says it, he doesn't accuse. He points to the vinyl and says, "Listen, that's the headline you can trust. Timing matters." When the crush was hottest, He could have set a match to the whole scene. Instead, he made it music and walked away a better writer. When the rumors were loudest, she could have cut him down with a single quip. Instead, she smiled, set a fence, and kept the door to friendship propped open with kindness. Years later, when they stood under the same lights again, the crowd heard two things at once: a memory and a promise. The memory was the ache. The promise was the respect. Some fans still ask, "So nothing happened?" as if the only proof of feeling is a wreck. But nothing happening was the point. The non-event became the legend because it proved a quieter truth. You can feel everything and still behave. You can carry heat cleanly. You can be interesting without leaving scorch marks behind you. In a culture allergic to patience, that kind of discipline reads like rebellion. In the end, Noel's confession sounds almost modest. His father's heart was big enough to love a woman he could never have, and wise enough to love her in a way that honored everyone involved. He hints, he nods, and he lets the paperwork, old chart dates, memoirs, and interviews, handle the confirmation. What he adds is tone, and that tone is unmistakably a son's, respectful, softened by time, and grateful for the way the story turned out. So step onto that bus for a minute. The night is long and the highway hums. She talks about goals that will soon belong to stadiums. He listens, laughs, and realizes he's in trouble of the sweetest kind. A payphone waits down the line. Later, in a quiet motel, a melody will land and a receiver will carry it across state lines to a friend who hears it, honors it, and leaves it where it belongs, in the music. That's worth celebrating, not because scandal is boring, but because grace is rare. He turned desire into discipline. She turned attention into generosity. Together, without ever being together, they gave country music a North Star. And now his son, with honky-tonk wisdom in his voice, says the part fans have been humming for 50 years. You weren't imagining it. The tenderness was real, the lines were firm, and the music tells the truth. Listen again, and you can almost hear the faint hum of a telephone line under the first verse, the soft exhale when the chorus lands, the half-smile on her face that only a midnight listener could see. You can almost picture him closing his eyes on the bus the next night, shoulders lighter for having placed the feeling where it could do good and not harm. You can picture her between cities, book in hand, grateful that friendship survived not in spite of honesty, but because of it. That's country music at its best. Honest, adult, brave, and kind. If you came for a train wreck, here's the switch. The crash never came. What we got instead was better. We got a standard, a roadmap for how to hold a feeling without breaking anything. We got proof that power can be gentle and that legends can act like neighbors. That is the confession. And that is why a ballad born on a restless night still stops a room when the first note climbs the air. And if you're wondering what Noel means by saying it now, take it from the man who has lived with the echoes. He isn't selling a scandal. He's handing us a key. It opens a door to the most human version of his father, the one who could stand in front of thousands and admit he wanted something he would never take, then walk off stage with enough grace to grin about it later. That version is worth knowing. That version is the legacy. And that, more than anything else, is what we all suspected, and what his son, at 62, is finally willing to say out loud. For anyone keeping score, the timeline underscores the feeling. In 1974, he cut and released her story song about a miner who chases luck out west, and it shot straight to #1. That same creative season, he wrote the ballad that would become the quiet centerpiece of this tale. By early 1975, it climbed to the top as well, proof that the public can hear sincerity even when names aren't spoken. The two of them kept working, crossing paths on stages, on television, and in memories that still sound like applause. None of it required a scandal. All of it required respect. Merle had written gut punch songs before, of course. His catalog is a map of American weather, work, pride, regret, longing, mercy. But this one sits in a special corner because it tells on him. It shows the private man behind the big stance. It reveals a tenderness that his friends always knew was there, and that fans sometimes missed because the image was loud. Noel sees that difference clearly. He grew up in green rooms where the tough guys stayed for the last chorus just to watch his father soften on that opening line. And Dolly? She had mountains to climb and a brand to build. But she never stopped being the generous friend who made space on her stage for people she respected. Decades after the call, she welcomed him onto her variety show with the same bright steadiness. When the time came to say goodbye, her words about him carried the warmth of family, not the distance of industry. She called out his tenderness, the very quality that song had captured, and in doing so, she underlined what the music had always implied. This is the part of the story that complicates gossip. Rumors flatten people into caricatures. The truth puts the round edges back on. He was older, married, and famous. She was married, driven, and careful. Those facts could have set a trap. Instead, they built a fence that protected everybody involved, including the audiences who loved them. That fence kept a crush from becoming collateral damage and turned it into a lesson people can actually use. Listen closely and you'll hear craftsmanship hiding inside the confession. The verses walk forward like a man pacing a motel carpet. The chorus opens a window and lets in air. The arrangement leaves just enough room for the words to breathe. He even tucked a female voice in the background, like a ghost of what the song refused to take. Everything about it says the same thing. I feel this, and I won't weaponize it. Country music has always loved its duets, two voices trading lines like letters. This was a different kind of duet. It was a conversation between restraint and revelation. He sang the truth without naming the person, and she answered without humiliating the singer. The result is a dialogue that plays out across decades, in liner notes and memoirs, and the way fans still lean closer when the needle drops. Noel's age in this moment matters more than people think. At 62, you've buried some friends, raised some kids, and told enough stories to know which ones belong to you and which do not. His tone carries that wisdom. He isn't trying to relive a headline, he's trying to preserve a standard. He's reminding us that his father's legend isn't just truck stop grit and rebel poses. It's also a code. Keep your word, tell the truth, and keep other people's names out of your mess. If you want another angle, think about how the song changes a room. In bars, it quiets pool cues. In kitchens, it hushes the clatter of plates. In cars, it makes the driver stop reaching for the dial because something honest just walked in and sat down. That's not spectacle, that's recognition. We've all wanted something we had no business taking. We've all needed a way to make peace with that feeling. He offered one, and it still works. Their story also reminds us what admiration looks like when it's healthy. He praised the worker behind the sparkle and saw the strategy inside the style. She respected the writer inside the outlaw and treated his vulnerability like a fragile instrument to be handled with care. Two different kingdoms, one shared ethic. Do excellent work and treat people well. The charts rewarded them, but even if the charts hadn't, the standard would still be worth keeping. You can trace the ripple effect. Fans who learned the backstory didn't feel cheated, they felt trusted. Young artists studied the balance. How to be magnetic without being reckless. How to let a song carry heat cleanly. How to stand next to a person you admire without making their life harder. Even critics who prefer their drama messy had to tip the hat. This wasn't a non-story, it was an adult story. And because this is country music, the end of the tale is not an ending at all. It's a chorus you can sing at any age. The son tells the truth the way a son should, with love and limits. The woman at the center keeps shining, proof that kindness and backbone can live in the same body. The man whose name started it all remains present every time that ballad floats out of a jukebox at midnight and makes strangers in a booth feel less alone. In the end, that's the lesson Noel is handing us with care today.